Let's see if I can do this. There was a firefight! That's close enough. Cool.
On January 21st, 2000, The Boondock Saints, directed and written by Troy Duffy, hit theaters. And by theaters, I mean 5 screens in the United States. The film earned under $45,000 on its $6 million budget and was considered by most to be a massive flop. Now in the year 2025, the gross sales total is closer to $50 million. So you might be asking yourself, how did this Walmart brand Tarantino movie go from a fledgling film failure to a cult classic? Don't worry, we got you. Before we jump into a summary, we have to discuss Troy Duffy. Troy Duffy is the writer, director, creator, and executive piece of shit that made this movie. Duffy was born in Hartford, Connecticut, and then in his 20s dropped out of college in Colorado and moved out to LA to chase his Hollywood dream with his band named The Brood. Nothing popped off for Duffy in LA until he wrote the screenplay for The Boondock Saints, which he was inspired to write after, witnessing a dead woman's body being wheeled out of a drug dealer's apartment. A brief aside, I have a lot of questions that probably will remain unanswered. Duffy completed the script in 1996 and gave it to a producer's assistant who worked at New Line Cinema, while Duffy was working at his bartending job. Duffy ended up having luck swing his way, and soon thereafter he was contracted by Paramount Pictures for $500,000. Now my only remaining question is, does anyone want to buy my script for $500,000? Later that year, famous Miramax producer and noted unproblematic person Harvey Weinstein won the bidding war for the film. They offered what many considered as one of the craziest deals in Hollywood history. They offered $450,000 to Duffy to write and direct the film, with a $15 million budget. Duffy's band, The Brood, would be hired to do the soundtrack for the entire movie, and Weinstein offered to buy the bar that Duffy worked at and would give him co-ownership. I can't believe I'm making this comparison in a fucking Boondock Saints video, but this is like the 90s equivalent of the deal Orson Welles received for Citizen Kane. Look, I may not be able to get a job with my film degree, but I can somehow tie Boondock Saints to Citizen Kane. Seems like a fair trade to me. Anyways, with an offer like that in the 90s for a first-time director-writer, you better hope that they're the next Christopher Nolan, not some guy that uses the F-slur 14 times in his first movie just because he feels like it. But I guess that's just show business, baby. Duffy inevitably fucked everything up. In the documentary Overnight from 2003, he's caught on tape insulting everyone from Ethan Hawke, Keanu Reeves, and Ewan McGregor. He can't even be bothered to say Kenneth Branagh's name correctly. What a prick. He even openly insults Jerry Bruckheimer. Yes, the Jerry Bruckheimer, who made Disney's 2009 smash hit masterpiece G-Force. Absolute cinema, by the way. So you may be asking yourself, what's the result of him being such a massive asshole? Well, Miramax cut their losses and dropped the film in 1997. Luckily enough for Duffy, he was able to get new funding in 1998 through Franchise Pictures, although the budget was cut down significantly. The movie was later promoted at the Cannes Film Festival, but ultimately was passed on by pretty much everyone. Duffy was able to get it into 5 theaters and got a Blockbuster exclusive wide release. With most movies, you want them to make a proverbial splash when they premiere. Unfortunately for the Boondock Saints, the initial release was more of a trickle. The home release was where the movie really actually took off, but unfortunately for Troy, he didn't get to see much of the benefit. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So now you know the insane history of getting this film made. Let's talk about something surprisingly a little less interesting, the summary of the actual movie itself. The movie opens inside of a Catholic mass. Connor and Murphy McManus are 2 twin brothers that seemingly move around the church as they please before walking outside to rip a durry. There is the most random insane montage that involves people beating each other with meat and shots of random places in Boston. Later, the twins go to a local pub to celebrate St. Patrick's Day with some friends. Their fun is then interrupted by some Russian mobsters that threaten the boys and their friends as they try to shut down the pub. This leads to an all-out brawl where Connor and Murphy beat down on the mobsters and embarrass them. The next morning, the Russians conveniently seem to know exactly where Connor and Murphy live, break into their shitty abandoned warehouse apartment, and try to kill them. In the end, Connor and Murphy kill the mobsters, via toilet slam, in an alley in self-defense. Later, Special Agent Paul Smecker, played by the Willem Dafoe, enters the crime scene. He investigates for 2 minutes with classical music playing on his headphones, and figures out the entire crime. He explains it all to the other detectives while making the most arrogant one his bitch for the remainder of the movie.
No way. You know how big a guy's gonna be do that? Fucking huge.
Oh, really? I might just be wanting a bagel with my coffee.
The brothers turn themselves in, and Smecker interviews them. Smecker then decides that, hey, all laws are pretty much made up anyway, and chooses not to charge them. In fact, he praises them as heroes and allows them to have a slumber party in the jail cell so they don't get swarmed by the media. Later that night, they receive a message from the Catholic God telling them to rid Boston of all evil, while they're getting drenched in water leaking out of the ceiling. The next morning, Connor learns that the Russian mob is having a meeting in a nearby hotel. The boys buy some guns from an underground arms dealer, fail to crawl through some vents at the hotel, and inevitably, the twins kill 9 Russian mobsters with ease. After the deed is done, Rocco, a friend of the brothers and local bitch boy for Papa Joe, the Italian mob boss, appears outside the hotel room to kill the Russians himself. After a night of drinking that results in Rocco accidentally killing his girlfriend's cat, Rocco and the twins figure out that Papa Joe sent Rocco up there as a setup. Rocco gets so angry and says fuck 85 times. That's how you know he's pissed. Connor, Murphy, and Rocco hunt down Vincenzo Lapazzi, Papa Joe's right-hand man, who is also played by another noted good guy, Ron Jeremy. The guys blow him and his cronies away. Later, Smecker and the crew come to investigate and figure out pretty much exactly what happened. Papa Joe, somehow thinking Rocco is behind all of the murders, hires the legendary hitman Il Duce to track him down. Rocco convinces the twins to help him shoot up a gambling den so he can kill another criminal, but right as they're leaving the scene, Il Duce ambushes them and seriously wounds them, including Rocco, who loses a finger. The trio retreat before Smecker and the police arrive, and yes, this is where the best scene in the entire movie takes place. We'll go ahead and throw that in here.
There was a firefight!
Smecker finds Rocco's finger, analyzes it, which helps him realize that the twins and Rocco have been behind all of these crimes. After getting drunk at a gay bar and making sure that he calls someone a slur, and I totally haven't mentioned this yet, but Willem Dafoe's character is a gay man in this. That doesn't add much context, but it does make it ironic when he calls someone a gay slur. Get the joke? Haha. After getting drunk and saying the slur, Smecker goes to a church and attempts to give confession to a priest. Rocco, fully unhinged now, wants to kill Smecker while he's in the booth, but the twins prevent him from doing the act. Smecker realizes that the laws of man should not always replace the laws of God, and decides to join the boys in their quest. The brothers call Smecker, and they tell them that they plan to kill Papa Joe at his mansion. Smecker then later finds out that they're walking into a massive trap. The twins ultimately get captured and tortured. Meanwhile, Rocco gets shot and killed by Papa Joe. Smecker tries to save the day in the only reasonable way he knows how, by dressing like a prostitute, seducing his way to free the boys. Unfortunately, he gets knocked out by Il Duce. Later, Il Duce enters the room and prepares to gun down the boys, but stops before pulling the trigger when hearing their prayer over Rocco's body. Il Duce then pulls a Darth Vader and introduces himself as the brother's father. Now that the family is reconciled, he agrees to join the brothers on their quest for ultimate justice. A few months later, Papa Joe is on trial, and the twins and Il Duce break into the courthouse and take over the entire courtroom. The lack of security in all these places is astounding. They make a speech about ridding the world of evil before killing Papa Joe in front of everybody. The media dubs the three as the Saints, and Irish music plays us out. All in all, The Boondock Saints made around 30 grand in its theatrical run, which again, it only ran in 5 theaters for one singular week. It became a cult hit after its home release, grossing about $50 million in domestic video sales, but its writer-director, Troy Duffy, didn't see any profits because he signed away the DVD rights in his contract. The good news for Duffy is that these sales were factored in when the ideas of a sequel came up. After a decade of being stuck in development hell, the Boondock Saints 2 All Saints Day was released in 2009, with Duffy returning as the director. Unfortunately for Duffy, the result was very similar. It was a critical and financial flop, with a 23% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 24 out of 100 on Metacritic, and a myriad of other scathing reviews, which probably were fair. On a budget of $8 million, it ended up grossing $10.6 million. And just as a reminder, the general rule of thumb for film budgets is to multiply the initial budget by 2.5, so to break even, the film would have had to make $20 million. The failure of the sequel further went on to show how the original Boondock Saints was pretty much lightning in a bottle for home release. Talks for a third film and TV series started in 2011, but these projects have also been stuck in development hell until about March of 2024, where a reimagining of the franchise was officially announced. Reedus and Flannery will reprise their roles and come on as executive producers, although Duffy will not return as a director. Personally, I don't actually think that this movie will ever come out, and I really don't think it has a shot at being that good. But with that said, I'll definitely see it. I just won't believe that it exists until I'm in one of the 5 theaters that it's actually showing in. Or maybe I can rent it at Blockbuster. Here's a couple of fun facts. The church in the first scene where Connor and Murphy attend Mass is the Church of the Covenant, and it's not even a Catholic church. It's a Presbyterian one or a Lutheran one. I don't know, there's some fucking controversy about that too. No Catholic churches in the area would allow for filming in their sanctuaries due to their objections with the plot. Like we mentioned before, this movie was only given a very limited release in the United States due to lack of funding, but the film also struggled due to lack of poor timing. The Columbine massacre had happened right around the release, which stopped a lot of theaters from agreeing to show the film. The word fuck and its derivatives are used a total of 246 times. Holy fuck. Troy Duffy comments that he received a 2-page letter from the Archdiocese of Toronto calling him the spawn of Satan, and that the script for this film was an instrument of destruction. You should definitely check out the documentary Overnight from 2003. It's a great documentary that follows around Troy Duffy in the aftermath of his original Boondock Saints, and you get to see where a man's ego slowly pushes away all of the goodwill that he had acquired from his creation. The documentary was a critical success, garnering substantially better reviews than the actual film. Funny enough, the whole reason that the documentary was created in the first place was at Troy Duffy's request, because as stated before, he's an egomaniac. In an attempt to make himself seem smarter and more interesting, the documentary shows that he isn't as smart as he thinks he is, and further cements that he's a huge asshole. With that being said, as of this recording, it's been 26 years since the original film came out, 22 since the documentary. I've done my fair share of dogpiling throughout this video, but people do change. He was in his late 20s when he was making the film, and literally the biggest producers in the world went to a bidding war over his movie. I'm not totally sure if Duffy actually has changed his ways, but if he has, good for him. And if he hasn't, well, I guess he is still deserving of his fall into obscurity. There's a lot that went into this cult classic, and that ended up being the perfect storm that resulted in 108 minutes of goofy fun. So now that you know the story, I guess you probably want my opinion. Or at least I'm assuming you do because you clicked on the video. I think that this movie is just fine. I think that it's a really good movie to turn on and turn your brain off to. Fun fact of my own, the first time I watched this movie actually was the first time that I drank alcohol without parental supervision, which led me to spending half of the movie on the tile floor of the bathroom nearby. Regardless, hey, there's problems with this movie too. The writing isn't exactly the best. The cast's acting is mid at best, with the exception of the great Willem Dafoe, who gives it 110% the entire time. Love you, King. There's a bunch of random slow-mo shots that just don't seem to fit or go on just a bit too long for my liking. Listen, I could sit here and rip apart Boondock Saints from head to toe, but if you really wanted that, there's about 1,000 other YouTube channels that you could go to that will probably put it a little bit better than I will. And honestly, I don't think that that's fair, because movies at the end of the day, in my opinion, are an expression of art. Or something like that. Regardless, the Boondock Saints should be a reminder that even in an industry that is as tough and cutthroat as Hollywood, you can make something cool if you believe in yourself, or get lucky, or meet Harvey Weinstein. Well, hopefully not now, given the circumstances. And last but not least, physical media forever, bitch. Thank you, like, subscribe. You got bills to pay, man.